Seems like it's Google week here on the channel. We can't seem to get away from Google-related Pixel news. This time, it is the Pixel 8a that is in the firing line, as it looks like Google will be raising the price of its A-series devices yet again this year. It went from $450 to $500 last year, and now it looks like the rumored price for the Pixel 8a is going to be a healthy $550 when it releases a little bit later this spring or early in the summertime. And as we've discussed this week, this starts becoming a lot more complicated when we talk about these devices from Google. Now, look, I know it looks like we're picking on Google a little bit. Samsung is going to get a little talking to tomorrow or Wednesday when we when we talk about the pricing for their devices, specifically the S23 FE. But right now we're talking about Google, because if you're going to justify a price increase and the Pixel 8a being $550, well, how are you going to do that when you've already said that the Pixel 8 can't get Gemini Nano and that you're going to focus on the higher-end devices for that? So now all this stuff that you've touted for 2 years now, how Tensor was the way to go, how Tensor has all the, especially Tensor 3 is going to have all these AI optimizations and all the rest of it. How are you going to look at us with a straight face and ask for $550 when you know full well that that device, the Pixel 8a, will not be receiving Gemini Nano and the higher-end AI features? How do you ask for that? I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't be paying it. I'm going to have one here. Obviously, I'm going to review it because that's what I do. But if I'm a consumer, it's going to take a lot for me to trust Google again. Because you've had a situation where they've told you for a year, specifically Tensor 3 was supposed to be it. Tensor 3 was supposed to be the be-all with AI. Now you're going to say, well, it's some arbitrary nonsense with RAM, and there are way too many defenders out there. I don't know if Google, you can tell who a Google partner is. I'm not going to name names, but you can see him out there on Twitter coming up with this. Well, it has less RAM, so stop it. Stop it. At least have the nerve to come out and tell me that it's a business decision. At least have the nerve to come out and say, you know what? We have to justify these price differences from these devices one way, so AI is the way we're going to do it. Just like we would have with a camera or a zoom lens or 120 hertz, we're going to do it with AI, and if you want the AI features, we're going to come out and say it that you got to pay more because that's just the way it is. I would respect that more. Instead of coming out and saying, oh, it's a RAM limitation. That's such nonsense. Use your brain. It doesn't pass the smell test. Tensor 3 chips are more than capable of handling Gemini Nano. They're artificially limiting it. They're pulling it back so they can make you buy the higher-end devices because the reasoning for buying those higher-end devices is becoming less and less. You've got mid-range devices, you've got budget devices even, that are doing the things that 95% of phone owners want done. Instagram, Twitter, all the rest of it. Pictures, good photos now on $500 devices. Solid updates and software on $500 devices. My Galaxy A15 runs One UI pretty darn well for $200. That's where we are right now. So phone companies have to come up with something in order to kind of get you to pay $1,000 for phones. Because it's not going to happen in a couple of years if all this performance keeps coming to $500 phones. So what are they doing? They're doing this. Google's the first one out of the gate. They're the ones that have hit it the worst out of everybody. Samsung, trust me, Samsung's got something, whether it's that pay model or whatever, because don't forget, their AI stuff, One UI 6.1 is not coming to the Galaxy S22 Ultra series. Another device that I can promise you is more than capable, especially when a lot of the stuff is in the cloud, server-side computing. Don't tell me that device can't handle it, because I know it can. I'm sure there's some workarounds or whatever else, and Google's going to be made to look a fool pretty soon here, because there's going to be people who root these devices, reverse engineer this stuff, and get it running on the older hardware, and then they're going to really look stupid. So just be very careful what you say right now if you're Google. Be very careful what you tell us that these devices can and can't do, and because of a RAM limitation. Let me tell you something. If you're one of these Google partners on Twitter, don't risk your reputation on that, because you're going to look like stupid. You're going to look stupid. So there's a lot of nonsense going on. If you're going to tell me that a Pixel 8a is going to be worth $550, you're going to have a lot of work when that device comes out proving that to me. And not saying, well, you still get circle to search. You still get that's not what you promised us. That's not what you told us was the future. That's not why what you told us was the point of Tensor. And when you look at a potential spec sheet for a Pixel 8a, it's going to have 8 gigs of RAM, and it's going to have a Tensor 3. Unless you come up with something, unless it's like the 80s or the 90s, you come up with some sort of coprocessor. 387 chip that you put in these is like, oh, now it's AI, now it's Gemini capable. Super Nintendo cartridges, the Super FX chip. I don't know, but it's getting rough out there. It's a rough week if you're Google. And you can say all that you want about Tensor 3 and all the rest of it, but let me tell you something. Tensor 3 and Google got one heck of a pass from me and others for the benchmarks, because that wasn't the point. There was AI optimizations. They had done better with battery life. They had gotten the overheating under control with Tensor 3, so I gave them a pass on the benchmarks. But if you take away the AI stuff, if you take away the extras, the reason why you'd buy a Pixel in the first place, and then say, well, whatever, these phones are still good, you're going to lose. You're going to get your lunch eaten by these phones like the OnePlus 12R, which don't have the AI stuff either, but will run circles around your Tensor 3. So be very careful how you want to play this if you're Google, because you're on a thin ice right now, because your Tensor chips don't benchmark as well, they don't perform as well, they don't hold up to gaming as well, and they do have heating issues when you really task them, but you're getting a pass because you said, you know what, well, the future's AI on these phones. And I bought it, and a lot of people bought it. I get it. Like, there's a lot of cool features that you could see coming down the pike on these devices with AI. With live call translates, just a small part of that. Note summarization is a small part of that. Over the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of stuff that's really cool on these devices featuring AI. And you sold us on the fact that, well, the benchmark doesn't matter, and this doesn't matter, and that doesn't matter, because Tensor 3 is optimized and has these little cores or whatever that are dedicated to AI. Well, apparently that's not true. Or it's not enough, or it's nonsense, because the RAM shouldn't matter. So again, Pixel 8a, figure it out. You know what? You get a clean slate on every release. You're only as good or as bad as your last device. If you come up with some justification on a Pixel 8a or figure out a way to magically get AI and Gemini Nano on that device, then we'll talk. But if you come out here and try to say that a Pixel 8a with such robust competition out there in the mid-range with fantastic devices that would absolutely eat the lunch of a Tensor 3 at $500, if you try to tell me that a Pixel 8a is worth $550, well, then that's going to be a really short conversation, regardless of the trust factor with Google right now. That's a non-starter for me. A Pixel 8a at $550 when you have such competition out there at $500. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.